I'm Nick Harcourt, and we're here at the WorldArts stage in Los Angeles, California for Transmissions. Our guest is Pete Yorn. Good to see you, man. Again.
Many times. Great to see you.
We've done this a few times.
Oh, yeah.
But you've never done 21 questions.
First time on Transmissions.
All right. Well, thank you for being here and playing.
My pleasure.
What's your first musical memory?
First musical memory is being very little, maybe 4 years old, maybe 5, in my basement in New Jersey. I had a little playroom, and I had this little 45 record player and a Sesame Street little box, and I had all these Sesame Street records, but it wasn't a Sesame Street 45. I remember playing the Logical song by Supertramp over and over on this 40. It would go, when I was young, I thought life, and I'd play over and over. And I can't listen to the song anymore to this day.
Because you listen to it so much.
It reminds me of that time, and it freaks me out for some reason. But yeah, I was obsessed with that song, and I definitely think that's my first musical memory.
That's very specific.
Yeah.
I never think of Supertramp as having 45s. They just always seem to be an album band, but I guess they did release
singles. I had a 45, and I'm not even really a fan or nothing. I never was into it. I was just obsessed with that song for a minute when I was little. I don't know.
When was the moment you knew that you wanted to do music?
I gravitated towards it just to play for fun as a kid. You know, we had a drum set in my basement. My brothers were playing, my older brothers, and so I was just, learned drums when I was probably 9, and then guitar when I was 12. I heard songs that made me want to write songs. So like when I was a drummer, I didn't want to write songs. I was like listening to Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, and just kind of banging out on the kit. And then when, in the mid 80s, when I discovered kind of the Smiths and the Clash and, Britpop and stuff like that, I was like, oh, I want to write songs that sound like this, because I was really into that music. So I was like, all right, I got to learn guitar. And I remember actually an English counselor, I was in summer camp in the Catskills, upstate New York.
Sure.
And there was all British counselors for, I'm not sure why, but they were all
just
all
desperate to get out of England.
They wanted to get out of England and get to America. And this dude's playing guitar, he's playing Smith songs. I was like, you gotta show me some chords. So I learned some chords, and that started off. I was probably 12 years old.
What was it about the drums that got you in at the beginning? Because I know you still play.
They were there, and I used to watch my older brothers in my basement have their friends over, and they would play cover songs. Like that was after the whole Supertramp moment. Then I would see them play Judas Priest covers in my basement. I remember them walking in definitely and hearing them play Breaking the Law, and it was two guys on guitar. He's like burnout kids with ripped jeans, Marshall Stacks.
Sure.
And my oldest brother was like the lead singer, and my brother Rick's on the drums. And I'm just like 7 years old, and I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. So I would just sit down there and watch them, and they would a few times a week there'd be kids, high school kids in my basement just rocking out. So I would watch that.
So let's talk about moving from starting to play to singing. When did singing come in? Do you remember what?
Right when singing came.
What was the first song that you played and sang? Was it one of your own, or was it a cover?
I remember the first song I wrote, which was around the time I learned guitar. It's called The One, and
was it about a girl?
Oh yeah. And I was trying to write a song that sounded like The Cure. It was like, she was the princess of the underworld. Her lips were red like fire. She told me once, or so I thought, that love was her desire.
Sure.
And years later, I looked back, I was like, dude, you rhymed fire and desire. It's lazy, lazy. But at the time, I had this melody and this beat that I liked, and I liked it. One of the first songs, the first song I ever learned on guitar was it was more of a bass line. I think it was like Blister in the Sun, by Violent Femmes, like ding, ding,
sure.
ding, ding, maybe before Smoke on the Water, boom, 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 those type of things. But then once I learned chords, I remember a song that was really popular at the time as well, a different genre, was Every Rose Has Its Thorn, Has Its Thorn by Poison. That was a huge song at the time, and it was simple. It was just G and C, and there were all these kind of like late 80s kind of power ballads coming out that were very acoustic guitar driven.
It's interesting because you've got such a diverse list of influences, and I've always thought this about you. You've got the American hair band kind of influence, as well as the British heavy metal band influence, and then you've got this weird Cure and Smith stuff as well. What did they have in common that was interesting to you?
so some bands I like because I thought they looked cool and I wanted to dress like them, and they made me feel a certain way. And other bands I like just because they were fun, and it was just a moment in time, you know.
Was the image thing always important to you?
Yes, in fact, it was more important, you know, than I think in general than it is now, even as an adult. Like I was used to be very, and when I first started bands, you know, I was very adamant that people had to look a certain way and dress a certain way because it was so influential to me, you know, when I first discovered bands that made me want to write songs. The big difference between, you know, the hair bands and the early metal stuff that I was into, no slight to them at all. Nothing. They're amazing. I still listen to a lot of that stuff today, but they never made me want to write songs. Really, it was not until I heard a certain kind of melody from, I could specifically say, The Cure, The Smiths, R.E.M., then I wanted to write songs.
Who's your favorite artist, dead or alive, who does what you do?
Jesus. Come on, Nick. I'll throw John Lennon in the mix. He's a magical, really
Right.
magical.
That'll do.
Yeah.
If you didn't do this, what would or could you do?
I don't know. The original plan was to go to law school, and the story goes, I graduated college, and instead of, I was young, and I was like, well, let me try music for a little bit, and if it doesn't work, I'll go to law school. But I don't think I would go to law school now if I didn't do music. That was just, I think, something to do. I'm way more into psychology now. I think if I didn't do music, I would probably be some sort of life coach or
You could become
counselor,
my therapist.
some sort of therapist. But I didn't go to school to do it. I got to use I would use my own research that I've developed over the years, my own techniques that I've learned from a lot of different disciplines and through my own experience, and I would use that to be the cornerstone of the sort of therapy that I would offer, because I ain't going back to school. There's no way.
That's fascinating to me, because, you know, hopefully as we get a little bit older, we do a little bit of self-work, and it sounds like you've done some. So what's your idea of happiness?
My idea of happiness, I think happiness can only be found in the present moment. I think people have this idea that, oh, I'm supposed to be happy. Sometimes people aren't happy and they get bummed out because they think they're supposed to be happy. I think the way to kind of frame it is that everything's supposed to flow. If you're unhappy, it's supposed to, you know, be as it is. You know, if it's going on months and months and you're not coming out of it, you know, then you got to work on it and figure it out. But I think a lot of unhappiness comes from people resisting what is and not really soaking in this moment now. They're either, you know, back 10 minutes ago, or they're worried about something in the future. And if you could kind of get the habit of just being present, I think naturally, just as a natural outcome, happiness will just flow to you.
So it comes and goes. It's a ride.
Of course, it's supposed to. And if you think it's not supposed to, then you're doomed.
So what's your idea of misery?
My idea of misery would be succumbing to the fleetingness of the world and everything that we're attached to in the world. And when you succumb to that, then you'll deal with loss inevitably. And so, you know, I have a song called Lose You, which really deals with that in a very straightforward way. But yeah, loss in general. Knowing, you know, when I dwell too hard on the fact that, you know, you're born in this world to die and you're going to lose everyone that you ever loved. You know,
You are?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know. Dude, I hate to break the news to you.
Shattered.
I know. But, and I used to dwell on that a lot. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why I think I probably got 5 albums out of that one. But you know, then you get to a point, you're like, well, fuck it.
Well, you're
we're
through
here.
that now, right?
Well, fuck it.
So,
well, you know,
yeah.
but
what do you mean by fleetingness? Let me just dig a little deeper on that.
Well, you know, we're all flowers. You know, there are days where, you know, I'm a sensitive cat sometimes, you know.
So
So, like,
what-
there are
so
days
what-
I'll see, you know, a beautiful flower just budding, and I'm like, oh, and then my head jumps to just the petals dead
gonna be
lying
dead
on the
tomorrow,
ground.
yeah.
Yeah, that's where my head jumps to. So I had to work on that shit. Otherwise, it was just too heavy for me. You know, the ride was too heavy.
I get it.
Yeah.
Your male hero.
My grandpa, Herman Goldblatt, who lived to 103 and was very inspirational. And he survived World War I, got over here, came to America, built a nice life, but he was a simple guy and had very kind of low-key values, but was always happy. He was kind of like a Buddha type guy. And everybody loved him, and he was great, yeah.
Female hero.
My mom, probably, for raising the 3 boys with no help, and we drove her crazy. So I got to give her props.
I've met your mom. She's cool.
She's a rad lady, yeah.
What's your favorite place on earth?
Home, being with my family is definitely wherever that is. I always say, as long as they're, you know, with me, I feel pretty whole. And so it doesn't have to be anywhere fancy. It doesn't have to be anywhere exotic. Just as we're together, I like it.
Well, talking of exotic places, you're on a desert island. You're only allowed one thing. What do you absolutely have to have?
I would have Les Stroud with me, Survivor Man. I mean,
Yeah?
he'll figure it out.
And you'd be okay then?
Yeah, just pull my boy Les Stroud in.
If you ran the world, what's the first thing you'd do?
Probably meditate.
You would meditate.
Mm-hmm.
And what would you be meditating on as the
Just get myself
as
in,
the person
I would
running the
get
world?
myself into a good, pure place, and then
what would you do?
Then whatever comes up, I'd be ready to do.
Okay.
I think it'd be better for everybody. Because you don't want to get me in a bad place around the world, because I'm going to make bad decisions.
Sure. Okay.
Fuck everybody.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Meditate and then take
The
it
better
from there.
I am for me, the better I'm going to be for the world. You know what I'm saying?
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
To be able to fly would be cool. I'd say.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Both. I definitely like getting up. I'm up pretty early these days because of my baby girl, but I don't mind it. Like, I love welcoming the day. You know, Southern California, the mornings are pretty nice too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I can't complain. But I also find that I love the night as well. And something changes in me, definitely chemically, as the sun goes down, it gets darker. I definitely my head gets a little lighter. Sometimes I think I'm more creative at night.
Interesting. Yeah.
But I write sometimes at night, but I definitely do most of my writing during the day. But I've been wondering in the back of my head, I wonder if I should try writing at night, because I'm in a different headspace for sure.
Dusk is totally my favorite time
I love dusk.
because there's just magic in the air. Digital or analog?
Both. I like both. I know people are very judgmental about digital or it has to be analog, but I've had good experiences with both, for sure.
Do you have a before show or studio recording ritual?
No. I don't have any rituals.
Is there anything you've seen backstage on your travels that you wish you hadn't seen?
No.
What's the title of the movie of your life?
Courageous Cat, Part 2.
Is there already a part 1 that I'm not aware of?
It just starts off with Part 2, right?
I like that, yeah. And what's your current state of mind right now?
Good.
You're good?
I'm good.
Good. I'm good.
Yeah.
That was great.
All right.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Cool, man. Thanks.
All right, bro.